Greetings, all. Greetings.
Hello?
Hello. Yes,
Hello?
this is Commissioner George.
Hello?
Nelson.
MacDonald?
Lubke?
This is Commissioner George. Hello.
We hear you.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
This is Ruby Nguyen. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Patricia, are you in?
All right, who's munching things?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Teresa Kimker. Can you all hear me? I'm just starting this on this new program. No?
We hear you.
I can hear you, but I'm still learning this site. Apparently, there's a different one for Max.
Okay.
It
Well, sorry.
doesn't follow the instructions we received, so it's clearly a Mac issue, and I was asked to download something that I didn't. So, can you hear me, Teresa? This is Barb.
Yes, I can hear you and I can
Okay.
see you.
Oh, I can't see anything.
So I have that it's just past 3:30. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the October 19th, 1920 virtual Heritage Preservation Commission meeting. The HPC reviews applications for projects at heritage sites or within heritage districts. And the commission also serves as an advisory body to the mayor and the city council on municipal heritage preservation matters for the city of St. Paul. All the documentation that we'll be using in this meeting today is available on the commission website at www.stpaul.gov/HPC. And no additional documentation will be discussed or recognized. During the meeting today, please mute your microphones except when you are recognized by the chair to speak. After being recognized by the chair, commissioners and staff will need to state their names before speaking, and everyone else will need to state their name and address before speaking. All deliberation and voting will be done via roll call conducted by the chair, and staff will be monitoring microphones and muting participants as needed. So with that, I'm going to start with a roll call for the commissioners. So just let me know if you're present when I call your name, please. Commissioner George, you are here, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat, you are here.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Commissioner Douglas can't make the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lukey, you are with us, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald, you are with us, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
I'm here.
Welcome, thank you. Commissioner Peroka.
Yes, I'm present.
Welcome. And Commissioner Wagner.
Here.
Welcome, thank you. So we have an agenda for this meeting. Can I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved. Commissioner Lupke.
Commissioner
Thank
Bazat,
you.
second.
Any opposed to the motion approving the agenda? Hearing none, the motion it carries. Are there any conflicts of interest today? Hearing none, we'll move on to the minutes for our meeting from October 5th of 2020. I assume you've all had a chance to review the minutes. Can I have a motion for approval of the minutes? Or are there any? Oh, thank you, Commissioner Bazat. And a second?
Commissioner George, second.
Thank you. Anybody opposed to adopting the minutes of October 5th, 1920?
Pardon me, Commissioner Kimper, Chair. I sent comments. I was unable to attend. I sent comments regarding both of the items on the agenda. But one was noted. The other was an email regarding the University of St. Thomas pre-application for demolition of Loras Hall. And it wasn't noted on the agenda. Just curious about whether or not it was summarized in the HPC comments portion, or whether or not it was shared with the commissioners.
I believe it was.
I saw it.
Okay, that's fine. It was not, it just wasn't noted in the minutes, and I wanted to make sure I got my vote in. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a second on the or I guess we're voting on the minutes. Are there any objections to the approval of the minutes for the October 5th, 2020 meeting?
I would simply like to abstain, Commissioner Lupke.
Okay, thank you. And I guess technically you need to give us a reason why you're abstaining.
I missed that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that motion, the minutes are adopted. And then we will move on to our public hearing. Today we have two applications that were found in today's packet on scheduled for a public hearing. The first one is new construction and demolition at Selby and Dale. Do we have a staff report on that?
Yes, we do.
We do have a staff report on that. And can we have a staff presentation on that application, please?
So this is the garage and repair shop at Selby Dale at 156 Dale. It was built in 1915 and had some storefront additions in 1926, and it may look familiar because the HPC actually reviewed the demolition of the auto garage at the March 9th meeting of this year and voted 7-0 to deny the demolition. The applicant has come back with a demolition request. That's all we're reviewing tonight. It's just the demolition. It's not the new construction that's being considered for that parcel as well as neighboring parcels. But the applicant has come forth with a demolition request, and they have an addition of materials for their application related to an engineering walkthrough of the building, and they've amended their new construction plans, which we look at new construction that's proposed on a proposed demolition site, so we can see kind of what the plan is and the impact. But it's something that, just to be clear, we're not making a decision on the new construction tonight, but there are some renderings in the packet. So you all have received the staff report. I will note that a lot of this is very similar to the previous staff report that you had on the March 9th meeting for this decision. I'll just highlight some of the changes in that the applicant has included renderings of the potential new construction project that would be a 4-story residential building built up to the sidewalk that would continue the rhythm set by the neighboring historic storefronts. However, if the building were to get torn down and nothing is put in its place, then it would have a negative impact on that rhythm and continuity of the block. Also, the applicant submitted a letter from Mel Erlacher, who is an engineer, and he provided some observations of the building. They didn't provide any engineering tests, but the observations included brick issues, water damage, specifically to the roof joist members, some deteriorated concrete slab, and they also noted concerns about contaminated soil that would have to be mitigated. And that would have to be mitigated either way for the site for the new construction project, but with the building being there, they would have to shore up the rear of the foundation in order to mitigate the soil underneath. And those are really the two biggest things, is the proposed reduction in height of the new construction that's planned versus what they had submitted previously, as well as the engineering report or letter, I should say, that we received with the packet. So I do have a draft resolution attached to the packet, but staff is recommending denial of the proposed demolition and encourages the applicant to either incorporate the structure into the new construction proposal or to omit the parcel from the new construction plan so that they could still build a new building without affecting the auto garage on site. And that's all. Does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, I was trying to get myself unmuted there. Yes.
It's okay.
Does anyone have questions for Alice? Does any of the commissioners have questions for the staff?
This is Commissioner Bazat. Just a quick question. once I returned from being out of town and looked at the agenda, I did some research, both on the building and on some other things. And there are a number of entries in city directories that show that occupied as an auto garage as early as 1921. Did the 1923 date come from building permits?
Oh, sorry, I was talking to no one. So the construction date that I have of 1915 is from our previous surveys and part of the designation files that we have on the Hill District. I didn't go into city directories.
No, that's fine. If that's the case, it just means that I didn't go back far enough. So that's my fault, and thanks.
Yeah.
Likely the 1915 date is correct.
Any other questions for staff?
This is Commissioner Wagner. I have
Yes,
a
Commissioner Wagner.
question. The applicant's packet has a page that refers to the economic value and usefulness per historic guidelines. So they actually sort of cut and paste a section 5 titled Demolition, in which they highlighted the economic value or usefulness of the building in comparison to the value of any proposed structures designated to replace the present building. I just would like staff to make comment about that particular excerpt and how we might be advised as commissioners to interpret that particular section of the Preservation District guidelines.
Let me just get to the same page that you're referring to.
And what was that page number again, please?
You know, I don't see a page number. I'd have to count, and I'm just looking at a PDF on a computer screen at the moment, so I can't even easily count pages.
Okay.
I think if you're
I can
looking at the
find it.
PDF, it's like page 12. Just got there.
Yes.
Okay.
It's got the little logo for the guidelines themselves. And it's, as Commissioner Wagner noted, it looks like, because of the typeface, looks like a cut and paste from that set of guidelines.
Yes. So as far as the economics of that, it's a difficult one. I will say that because a lot of it is contingent upon the efforts put forward by the applicant of the project and what the proposed new use is and what the desire is for the parcel. And the
As I
thing about
understand it, there's not specifically a new proposed use. Would that be a fair statement that they haven't actually, they just want to tear it down, they haven't proposed a new use, or am I missing that?
the new use would be it's a new construction, 4 stories.
Okay,
And
so they
there's some renderings
they
in
are.
the packet.
There we go. Got it.
Yes. So
Okay.
when we look at
That's
demolition, we do have to look at what's proposed in its place, so that we don't end up with just empty lots, and that there is a plan
They're
involved.
looking to expand their project.
Yes.
Okay.
So the
got it.
project is planned for neighboring parcels that are already empty, but it would also incorporate this parcel, which has the auto garage on it, which is partially why I included in the staff recommendation a suggestion of if the applicant can proceed with their new construction without claiming the parcel with the auto garage as an alternative to demo. And previously, when the HPC reviewed this in March, they had planned to incorporate the auto garage at one point. And from the write-up that they submitted, it seems that they lost the interested tenant that was going to be in the auto garage. And so part of their feasibility was that, oh, I'm so sorry. Part of their feasibility was that they didn't have a tenant for the building, and therefore the building has lost a lot of its usefulness.
Commissioner Kimker, or through the chair to staff.
Yes, Commissioner Bazat.
One of the problems with that phrase in any of the guidelines is the application of economic value to whom. I recognize that tons more apartments will be of value to the owner and or developer. But I think one of the things we have been doing a lot of reading about has to do with economic value to the city. And even the State Historic Preservation Office study notes the economic benefits of preservation and restoration or rehabilitation or reuse of historic buildings, and how that work creates value in a longer term for the city. So and frankly, that part of the phrase being the last one in these particular guidelines seems to me to tend toward being at the bottom level considerations as you look at all the other considerations in that. That's an interpretation that we have used in the past as well. Thank you.
Also, the applicant should be on the call. So when we open it up to the applicant, you're welcome to ask them any questions about how their plans have changed and why. That's something you can certainly discuss with them.
This is Commissioner Wagner again. I just want to follow up on my initial question. What I see with this application is that while they're proposing demolition and they have some nice renderings, they actually aren't applying for a different use for this particular property at this point in time. So, as with a lot of things, it's a little bit of a, I don't know, you might call it chicken and egg. They want a demolition first before they commit to anything. Well, any kind of economic circumstances could befall the applicant that would leave us with a demolition, even if we granted it, a building that gets demolished and then nothing that replaces it. There's no guarantees once we allow a demolition that they actually would come forth with a new application. Unless I'm wrong, there's no specific connection with this proposed demolition with an actual project that they've asked approval of, or clarify if you could.
Sure. So Commissioner Wagner, it's you bring up a good point, and it's something that we do think about when we're looking at demolition. It's why we ask for kind of at least rough ideas of what's proposed. In the staff report that you have, while I did make a recommendation for denial, I did include language if the HPC were to approve the demolition, and part of that I've included conditions on the approval, which would be, and this is pretty standard for demolitions that we have, in that a demolition cannot start until all the necessary city approvals are received for the new construction that's in its place. And that would include the HPC review and approval of the final construction documents. So while they may, if the HPC were to approve the demolition tonight, they would have a approval, but it's contingent upon their new construction plans approved by the HPC in the city as well. And nothing can start until the permits for the new construction are in hand.
To staff, this is Commissioner Bazat. I kind of have to say that I looked at if there was a motion change. I looked at that document and it's not quite clear. It says cannot commence until all necessary city approvals are received. Does that mean specifically that including the HPC review, so that demolition could not, construction could not commence, or demolition could not commence until the HPC has approved the application for the replacement structure, should there be one? Is that correct?
It is for all necessary city approvals. So if there are any variances that are needed, if there are any approvals at all, not just HPC, but it needs to be a project that is ready to commence from all angles of the city.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that including HP review is part of the cannot commence demolition.
Correct.
I just want to nail that down. Thank you.
We try to balance the, like Wagner said, it is a little bit chicken and egg, and we don't want people to get too far along in a plan that may not be possible, and putting money into complete plans for us to review if it can't happen yet, but enough to go off of to give the HPC a concept of what's being proposed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions?
Do we,
for...
one more question from Commissioner Wagner here, which relates to, do we know if, it says in their documentation that property has failed over 10 plus years to find a better tenant. And I'm not sure if that means that they haven't had a tenant in 10 plus years. But in conjunction with that, what I'm also curious is if this was separated as a different parcel. They sort of suggest that it's unmarketable, but I'm not so sure about that. Could they recoup their presumed costs for the land and value of the building? I would hazard to say that there's probably a good chance that they could. They just want to choose to redevelop it, I think.
Sounds like a question, Commissioner Bazat, sounds like a question for the applicant, doesn't it? Because
Yes.
It's pretty specific to their situation.
I would agree. The applicant has not owned the parcel for that history. This site has had a lot of deferred maintenance, leading it to where it's at. But the applicant can definitely speak more to that process.
Just out of curiosity, this is Commissioner Lubke. Is there an affordable housing component to this project, and has it changed given the new proposal?
Those are details I did not receive nor consider for the demolition, but you can certainly ask the applicant. Sounds like we might be ready to talk to them.
Thanks.
Okay, are there any further questions for staff? If not, we will ask for the applicant's presentation. Is there someone here from the applicant to address the commission?
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners and staff. This is Jim Lavelle. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for considering our application. I do apologize. It appears it was many questions unanswered, but I'll do my best to answer those questions so you can make a fair and balanced decision. Maybe I just step back a little bit. The current property owner, his name is Al Cheetah. He's undesirous to sell the property piecemeal. So if we were to close on it, we would purchase all the property facing Selby and Dale. That was one of, I think, Allison's or maybe George's recommendations to split the property. And then shortly after we had signed a purchase agreement for the property, fortunately, very fortunately, we had a colleague of mine, a retailer, who was shoulder to shoulder through a lot of the process to renovate, to purchase that single-story structure from us and renovate it into a salon use, which was, I think, part of our previous approvals from the city. Regardless, that unfortunately changed on or about July 1st, whereby they, a couple of reasons, the cost to renovate the existing one-story structure and other COVID-related problems to their business terminated discussions with us. So we reached out to the community, brokerage community, retail community for several months without any interest, had decided to look at different ways of redeveloping the project. And one of those ways, which appears to be most feasible, is to redevelop the whole project into a housing project. And as Allison mentioned, we wouldn't close on the property, or we wouldn't, or we're not requesting, just a straight up demolition of the building. We are requesting a demolition of the existing building and construction of a new building, housing that incorporates the site. One of the things that's really interesting to me about this debate is the period of significance where the facade was manipulated and moved back to the east from wherever it was on the west side of the parcel for the single-story building. And what's interesting to me about that specifically is, wouldn't it be more important to embrace the original historical building site plan as opposed to something that was modified later? In addition to that, there was some depiction of brick patterning for the new building, and we'd be certainly willing to recreate patterning that's consistent with the existing building today, or any other recommendations your board might have to embrace that historic feature to the buildings in these areas on a new building. In regards to the interactions with Summit University Neighborhood Association, going way back to February of this year, where one of the most important things is a component of affordable housing in this project, and being able for us to allow us to create, as opposed to an 80 unit plus or minus building, to 105 unit to 110 unit building plus or minus, we'll be able to meet that desire, exponentially with a bigger building. In addition, we think that the bigger building will help the city's tax base, of course, grow. Just really think that, even from the retailers that were having troubles prior COVID-19, I really think it's going to be difficult to re-tenant the existing one-story building in some type of retail fashion or office fashion based on the costs, as well as the vacancies that are not only on the Selby and Dale corridor, but the vacancies on Grand Avenue and other areas within this trade market for the retail component.
Hello?
So I guess with that just short introduction, hopefully I've answered some the number of the questions. I stand here willing and able to answer any other questions that I didn't answer, and I certainly look forward to your feedback and consideration of our application.
Thank you, Mr. Lau. Just as a technical point, I can't remember if you put your address in the record, but we do need that.
Oh, I apologize. My mistake. It's 2416 Edgecombe Road, and that's in beautiful St. Paul, Minnesota.
Thank you. Are there questions from the commission for the applicant?
Madam Chair, I have a question. This is Commissioner Perotka.
Please go ahead, Commissioner Perotka.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Laval, for coming here today. In the highlighted part that Commissioner Wagner pointed out, the economic value or usefulness of the building, you mentioned your friend who had an idea for a salon. I understand in the time of COVID that's not as viable as it once was. But have you met or contacted any of the business owners in that area? For example, I know that I've talked to a few of them, and they're changing their business plans. So, for example, Black Blue, that has been at that location on Selby for 11 years now, is considering finding a local space to turn out a line of Black Blue jeans made here in St. Paul. Also, Prim, that has been at its current location on the corner for almost a decade now. They're changing their business plan. I don't know about the skateboard shop or the kitchen design center or Mississippi Co-op. But during the time of COVID, a lot of business plans are changing, and this might be an opportunity to reassess the economic potential and usefulness of the garage.
Thank you for your comment. I did not, to be specific, I did not have conversations with Black Blue. I've had some interaction with Print, but not specifically about occupying this building. The net was cast for the last 3 months or so before we made this application, after the time our salon use went away, to the brokerage community and some other type retailers. Some door knocking was done, but I didn't hit every door. So hopefully that gives you a better feel for what our efforts were.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission for the applicant?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lubke, I did raise my hand. I'll lower my hand now. Sir, can you tell me if you made any commitments to the neighborhood association when discussing opportunities for affordable housing with this project? And if so, can you share those with us?
Certainly. Initially, what we discussed was a range of affordable housing related to AMI income levels or average median income levels, and that initially was in between 10 and 20% of the units at a 60 to 80% AMI level. On these most recent discussions, there was quite a push to make a commitment to having 20% of the units at a 60% AMI level, which is a more affordable than an 80% AMI. So that is what our goal is.
All right, but that's a goal. That's not a commitment made in anything with the city.
I have not made a commitment in writing to that, but that goal is something that isn't made without any sincerity. So therefore, I don't, at this initial phase, if we're granted approval, we'll finish up our studies and make that, our studies, our cost estimates, engineering, et cetera, and make that commitment in writing to the neighborhood group as well as the city.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Commissioner
Other
Wagner, I
questions?
have a question.
Yes,
Commissioner Wagner, I am curious about the reduction from the 5-story to the 4-story. And is that specific? It looks like it's specific to this request for demolition. And if that was something you're willing to consider, one of the things I'm curious about is a better proportional relationship to the building on the corner of Selby and Dale, and whether or not there could be some greater gesture towards the scale of the existing building rather than just lopping off the penthouse piece. And maybe you can address both of those questions.
Certainly, I guess the number of units is going to be tied in some relationship to the parking count. And so one of the strategies, as opposed to providing 2 levels of parking underground, we were going to provide 1. So we didn't want to become well underparked. I mean, some people, there's strategies that we employ every day to minimize our car use and minimize car ownership, but there will be people that own cars. So that's why the story came off, so that we could minimize underground parking to save dollars. In regards to the scale, I'm in proportion. I guess I'm sitting here all ears. I would like to have your feedback as to what specifically you would be inclined to support more than what's presented today. If it's a skinnier building, or if it's sure.
What caught my eye was that instead of reducing the overall mass by 1 story, you took the penthouse off, which doesn't effectively change the proportions of the building and scale a relationship to the existing building. So what might be more palatable in my mind would be a main mass that matches the existing corner building with a penthouse on top of it, so that the penthouse feels like it's on top of a 3-story building instead of just merely having a singular mass 4-story building. Does that am I making sense?
Yes, you are. You said it better than I did. I think that's what you're asking for, but I wanted to get more specific feedback. That does make sense. And yes, we can certainly consider that.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? If not, did we receive, I know we received at least one, I got this right. Do we have written testimony or comments from the public on this one?
I received one, and it was forwarded to the HPC. It was from Bethany Gladhill and Patrick Roan at 627 Ashland. And it was a letter supporting the denial of the demolition proposal. To summarize, they live in the area. The building tells a story of everyday people of St. Paul and the kind of business node development that was part of the rest of that corner. They go on about kind of the history of the area But you all have it, so I won't go into detail, but that was the only letter that we received.
Thank you, Allison. Are there any members of the public who are here today to testify to this application? If not, I will close the public hearing at this point, and I'll ask the commission if anyone would like to make a motion on this application.
Chair, this is Commissioner Bazat.
Yes, Commissioner Bazat.
I move to adopt the proposed resolution to deny the demolition of 156 Dale Street North for the findings of fact, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Commissioner George.
Thank you, Commissioner George. And then I will open that motion up to the commission for deliberation.
Chair, this is Commissioner Bazat.
Yes, Commissioner Bazat.
I find that number one, it would be extraordinarily helpful to have some scientific documentation from a structural engineer about the alleged defects within the structure. I recognize that it's been vacant for a while and that there may be some issues. So that would be a first consideration for me. A second would be that I did, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I did some really quick deep diving into the context of auto garages of this era and found some really interesting little factoids. And one is that there aren't a lot of studies on it, but two, the automobile age started in the late 19-teens. And beginning with the 1921 city directory, there were 2 pages of auto garages and repair garages and tire fixer-uppers. And by 1922, there were 6 pages of them. So this was operating, right in the heart of that. And I think, then I took dozens of the addresses from the directories and did some quick Google Street Views of whether or not any existed. And based on this very, very superficial research, because there hasn't been a lot of time to dig very, very deep, it seems that very few are left. And they're of all different styles. And I think that this one is, at least among the ones that I was able to see that are extant, is unique in its styling. And whether or not the brickwork designs get reproduced, that's reproduction, not preservation. And I think that in addition, just hearing sort of now that there's been some outreach to the community, which I think is a great idea, about who might be potential tenants of a space like this. That neighborhood's already lost the muddy pig, and things change really quickly. I think there is potential for reuse. And, just the fact that there are 2 garage doors. I mean, take a look at, who is it? Bad Weather on West 7th that, just said, okay, they're garage doors. We're going to keep them open like that. And a lot of places have done that. So I don't see that as a detriment. I just believe that a great deal more work needs to be done to determine a reuse. And I think it's too early to allow any demolition, particularly based on its historic context. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
This is Commissioner McDonald.
Yes, Commissioner McDonald.
Hi. I'm not in favor of demolition at this time, but I guess I feel like I'm in the middle of a huge gray area when it comes to the whole issue of cost-benefit analysis. If it's denied today, and the applicant goes back and does another cost-benefit analysis based on specific structural issues and whatever, if I'm looking at the guidelines, I have no objective criteria to say, yeah, that's not going to financially fly, or it will. I feel at a loss as to how to make a decision in the future if it comes down to an economic case. You know, the historical case, I think, is clear. Structurally, architecturally, you can fix just about anything, and it's a matter of how much it costs. So I'm sort of in a quandary at the moment. I was wondering if anybody could help me.
Well, this is Commissioner Lubke. I mean, I think it was pretty clear when we were discussing sidewalk replacements on that condominium project just off Summit that we made a decision that was essentially purely economic. So, I mean, you know, we do that. But yes, is this a gray area? Can we make a decision based on things with many unknowns? Stuart, I absolutely agree with you. We can't. I mean, I'm intending to vote in favor of the motion today, despite the fact that 60% AMI housing in this neighborhood, I think, is incredibly attractive. And I do believe if it's city policy that we increase the number of housing units in the city of St. Paul, that we try to do that. But it's far too up in the air for me not to vote yes right now.
I would agree on the timing. I'm more concerned about the next go round, if you will.
Chair, this is Commissioner Bazat addressing both Stu and Rob. I think I agree. In fact, that's why I mentioned that right now we're floundering without a lot of information about the potential future of potential replacement and the cost thereof. I agree with both of you about the need for housing. I mean, I live on the West End. But I think, which, you know, is pretty full in terms of apartment tenants, and people are in need. But I think in addition to requiring some very specific information about the costs of any maintenance and repairs to the existing structure, I think there should also, looking at the top of the list of things that we consider in the guidelines for approval of any demolitions, I think there needs to be some additional research about the building's history, which Commissioner Nelson has done and forwarded an email to us way last at the beginning of the year, and has re-forwarded it to us with a history of the use of the structure and the owners. And so there's both a context, there's architectural interest, there is, I don't know, but yeah, we need more information. And at this point, as just a proposal for demolition, I think it should be denied. Hence my motion to deny the application.
This is
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Nelson.
Yes, Commissioner Nelson.
I surprised myself in reviewing this application in coming down in favor of demolition. And I'll state my reasons. I think the applicant has made a pretty compelling case. If you look, there's one estimate in this submission that it would cost $1.6 million to rehab the structure, resulting in a structure worth $1.2 million. Furthermore, visually, really, a part of our mission, a big part of our mission is to preserve the visual interest of this neighborhood and other historic districts. To me, this building adds very little, and the renderings of what is proposed to replace it, to my eyes anyway, far more visually interesting than what we have now. Furthermore, yes, this corner for a long time, for most of the 20th century, was a really vital, bustling commercial hub, but it's not that anymore. All of that, almost all of it, except for the adjoining building, is lost. And look at what has replaced it. There is nothing visually interesting around there at all. The context is gone, and I think we should recognize that the context is gone, and better to have something that brings more vitality and visual interest to that corner, in a way as a reminder of what it once was, than to try to keep this building that I'm persuaded anyway does not have a good prospect of economic value. So I'm going to vote against this motion.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Perotka.
Yes, Commissioner Perotka.
Thank you. There are a number of 3 points I'd like to address. First of all, regarding the structure, 80% of carbons are in the ground. Demolition and new construction has an intensified negative impact on the environment and surrounding community. As well, regarding economic viability, Mr. Laval did propose a serious proposal for viability, but as well, I think the argument that there are other possibilities of use for the existing structure that can be explored. As well, in the 6 months since we've seen this application, the world's changed. And economic viability, oh my goodness, it's very hard to comment on that. But it might be something where we can build on strength and complementary businesses that support Black Blue. And I disagree with Commissioner Nelson. This Black Blue has been there for 11 years. Primp has been there for almost a decade. Mississippi Market has been there for I'm pretty sure for over 20 years now. There is a dry cleaner down a block from on Selby that has been there for generations. Actually, this has been the most sustained economic viability of this corner for quite a while, and that's been stable for at least a decade now. And that to build on those strengths and to contact and to keep wealth, garner and create wealth and keep it in St. Paul, because if we don't complement the existing businesses there, like Primp, like the new skateboard shop, and Mississippi Market, they might go away. And another consideration is the historic value of a part of a historic district. So demolition would definitely negatively impact the historic district. And taste and style is subjective. Anyway, so I intend to vote against demolition and in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Any other deliberation on this motion?
This is Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
This is a tough one. I have to find myself more in the camp of Commissioner Nelson at the moment. I think this is a applicant who has done some quite serious due diligence on a property that at best has some historic value, but of a limited scope and nature, and has, I think, done some honest attempts to evaluate that. The proposal that would go in hand with demolition is I think better scaled and potentially has even an opportunity to be quite substantially improved in terms of its scalar relationship to the corner building. I note in the site plan that there's a proposal to remove garage access off of Selby, which would be, I think, an incredible benefit and keep it just to the alley side. And I don't think that should be missed. Economic viability of this particular building, given that it's lied vacant for several years now, and prior to that had a relatively low use benefit to the visual quality of the neighborhood with vehicles parked out in front and cobbled together facade, leads me to believe that we'd see some improvement with the quality of the streetscape quite significantly, both on Selby Avenue and also here on Dale. So I struggle because it's always difficult to remove historic fabric, but I think a case has been made and has tipped me over into the scale of being willing to approve a demolition, and therefore unlikely that I would support the motion as stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wagner. Any further deliberation? If not, I will close the deliberation and call for a vote on the pending motion. And I'll do that by taking roll, and just let me know if you vote for or against the motion. Commissioner George.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Bazat.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Lubke.
Aye.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson.
No.
Commissioner Perotka.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wagner.
No.
Thank you. So it looks like we have 6 votes in favor of the motion, so therefore it passes. So thank you, Mr. Laval, and thank you, commissioners, for that discussion. And we will move on to our second item for our public hearing today, and that is the unapproved siding and windows at 777 6th Street East in the Dayton's Bluff District. And
This is George Gause and staff. 777 6th Street East was built in 1889. This house is part of the 8 houses known as Keller Row. This row along the north side of the block retains its integrity of massing. Keller Row was built by the Keller family, who commissioned all 8 houses, and they were designed by Edwin Redcliffe. This house is number 6 in the row. It was commissioned by the widow of the lumber baron, John Keller. And their son, Lewis Keller, was the foreman of the construction. It is a 2 1/2 story late Queen Anne style residence. The front porch has been enclosed and covered with an asphalt veneer prior to designation of Dayton's Bluff Historic District. 4 other structures in Keller Row do not contain their original wood siding. We have 2 with asbestos siding at 771 and 765, and 2 with vinyl siding at 773 and 779. There are no records as to when this work was done. May have been prior to the district. The applicant applied for a series of restoration projects to satisfy a certificate of occupancy inspection order, which found several deficiencies, including rear stairs, siding, and windows. A copy of that certificate of occupancy inspection was included in your packet. The application for a building permit for all the work was made to the Department of Safety and Inspection. DSI staff could not issue the permit without Heritage Preservation review and approval and forwarded it to us. Staff spoke with the owner about the application in August 2020. The rear stair was not original to the structure and was in dangerous condition. The applicant had provided plans for the reconstruction, so staff approved the removal and reconstruction of the rear stair. But the other work did not come with satisfactory documentation, and the applicant was asked to get more information about the proposal. In late September, staff began to get calls and emails from concerned neighbors. The siding replacement work had begun without approval, and during a city inspector visit, he also found that window replacement work was occurring that did not have any permits. In order to achieve a certificate of occupancy, the deficiencies found by the inspector will need to be addressed. Currently, siding and windows are the issue. Siding on 3 sides has been removed from the structure and construction wrap has been installed. The applicant is proposing to install vinyl siding. Window replacement was found to be occurring during a site visit. The applicant has asked for window replacement but has not submitted detailed information about the documentation, about which windows need to be replaced, what the condition and materials of the existing windows and proposed windows are. The inspection report discusses minor repair issues that would not typically require entire window replacement, such as repairing glass, painting, installing hardware, which are all economical solutions to the issues beyond wholesale replacement of a window. So there are 3 guidelines in the Dayton's Bluff Chapter 74 that the work that has happened does not meet. Reading from section 74.89, restoration and rehabilitation. Item B, exterior surfaces, walls, wood sided. Number 1, repair. Deteriorated wood siding should be replaced with new material resembling the original in width, thickness, and profile and texture. New siding should be installed with the weather exposed surface identical to the original. This does not meet the application. The wood siding was removed without approval and vinyl siding is proposed. B2, exterior surfaces, walls, wood sided, vinyl and aluminum siding. Other manufactured products. Buildings originally clad in wood siding should not be resurfaced with brick, stucco, artificial stone, or brick veneer, hardboard, vinyl, or aluminum siding. The Commission may consider the following exceptions to the installation of vinyl on a case-by-case basis. Item A, in cases where existing asphalt, asbestos, aluminum, or vinyl siding is to be removed and where the underlying original siding is deteriorated, vinyl siding may be put in its place. And this condition does not exist here. The wood that was the siding that was on the structure was wood, and we don't know the condition of the wood. Then item D, windows and entries. Item 1, windows. Any alteration, including removal of moldings or changing in window size or type, can have a significant or often detrimental effect on the appearance of the building as well as on the surrounding streetscape. A, size and shape. Existing window openings should be retained. Window openings should not be enlarged or reduced to fit new units. New window openings should not be introduced into principal elevations. B, sash. The size and number of panes of glass in each sash should not be altered. New sash, if installed, should duplicate the existing or other appropriate historic models. Crank-out or sliding units are not appropriate replacement for double hung sash windows. C, trim. Historic window casing should be retained whenever possible. If replacement is necessary, the original profile should be replicated. Wood siding. To match the original siding should be installed on the property and not vinyl. Windows should be repaired. If windows are in such bad shape they can't be repaired, then there needs to be a conversation with staff and adequate documentation needs to be submitted. Based on the draft resolution, staff is recommending denial of this application as it stands. Questions?
Are there any questions from the commission for Mr. Goss?
Through the chair for staff.
Yes.
We received a letter from someone in the district who actually reported some of this unpermitted work, and it wasn't clear whether or not, but based on some of the photographs, is any of the original siding, I have not had a chance to drive by this structure. Is any of the original siding still intact on the building?
I'm not sure. I got a report to that too. At one point there was 3 sides were gone, but I think all of it's gone at this point.
Okay, and it wasn't saved in any way. It was just pulled off.
It was just
Is that
pulled
correct?
off.
All right, and same with the original windows that were extant before this work began?
I don't know how many of the windows remain. If they were original to the structure, we had talked about windows. We had told the applicant what they needed to submit for window replacement or repair. The inspector went out, discovered window replacement occurring. So I don't know how many windows have been replaced. I don't know what's still there. We need an assessment of the whole building, and we need an assessment of the whole project.
Right, and whether or not any of the materials are salvageable, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Bazat, this is Commissioner Lubke.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure you were done. George, I don't know how to phrase this question politely, so I will ask it directly. Do you believe these actions demonstrate contempt for city requirements?
I try not to read into the actions too much. I realize a lot of what we do is confusing, especially right now in the time of COVID and all the offices are closed, so you can't walk into an office and talk to somebody. You have to call. We tried to speak with the applicant about what they were doing and tell them what we needed, and then the work kind of just happened. We did have a standing stop work order on the property, and it appears, and there's several of the neighbors testified to that work apparently continued after the stop work order was issued. So.
Chairman, is it appropriate for me to make a comment now, or this is just questioning time for staff?
Yes, technically this is just question time for the staff, and then you can offer your comments when we get to the discussion stage of this application.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the staff?
This is Commissioner Wagner.
Yes, Commissioner Wagner.
I would ask in your conversations with the applicant, at any time did you believe that there was an issue with language in terms of understanding or need for interpretation?
I don't believe there was a question in language. I believe there may have been a question in understanding what we were asking for. So I was trying to be as simple and plain languaged as I could possibly be. That we needed photos of the windows, We needed to know what windows. I even took a couple of pictures and did some, squares around them and said, is this the window that's being replaced? Where are we? Where is this project at? So.
Chair.
So
through the-
to the best of your knowledge, there was no language barrier associated with you and the applicant.
I don't believe so. If there was,
Thank
yeah.
Commissioner Bazat? Yes.
Question for staff again, was the applicant informed that any work without a permit is liable for fees that get levied?
Well, there's well, not from us, only from.
No, right, from inspections. So when they issue the stop work order, were they told that that meant stop? Have you spoken with the inspector who made the work, who did the stop work order?
Yes, and Clint is actually in the meeting.
Okay.
Maybe Clint would like to unmute and answer that question. I believe there is something on the stop work order that talks about fees. Clint?
Yes, I did talk to her about a stop work order. We were on site. I had gone over some of the things that George had communicated with her regarding the siding and the window information that George had referenced earlier, where there was incomplete information for HPC to authorize that portion of the work that was being done. And so I went out there based on a complaint and found that there was siding being replaced. There was a vinyl siding that looked like it was going to be used for the replacement material. There was I believe three windows, if memory serves me correctly. 2 windows had already been installed, and when I arrived, the first day, actually, no windows, I don't believe, have been installed. After I had issued the stop work order, the next day I stopped out to see if there was more work being done. And sure enough, there were workers on site, and he was working on those windows. There were, at that point, I believe, 3 windows that have been replaced. 2 were already installed into the building. I did not go inside to view what the nature of the interior progress have been, but I know that they were at least installed into the building. And then the third one was taken out, and they were altering the shape of the opening. It had like a rectangle window with like an arch top that went over about, I don't know, 2/3 of the length of the window, I believe, and they had altered that opening to be just a plain rectangle opening. And at that point, it was just an opening. I told them that they should close that up and discontinue work. And at that time, I asked him if he knew that there was a stop work order on the property, and he said no. And then he got his boss on the phone, and his boss didn't seem to have been told that there was a stop work order either. So at that point, they stopped work. They rolled up, and to my knowledge, they left. I left before he was off of the job site because I had other tasks to deal with. But they were rolling out their tools when I left. And I don't know if I got off base there with your question, and if I answered that or not, I apologize. I hope I helped out there.
This is Commissioner Bazat again, if I may ask Mr. Zane a quick question. Thank you for that. That helps, explain what you found and what you did. And then I have a question because, to be honest, I am ignorant of the answer. Are there fees from the city inspections department for continuing work without a permit?
So there are recourses that the city can take as far as they can double fee the permits when they do get issued. That's one course of action. Another course is that they can issue citations for work being done without permits or expired permits, that type of a thing.
Okay, thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Mr. Zane, this is Commissioner Lubke. Was the property owner on site during any interaction with city staff?
Not so. No, there was not. The owner was not on site the first 2 times I was out there. I was out there a total of 3 times. The first time was to respond to the complaint where I noticed the siding had been begun. The siding work had been begun. And at that time, there was nobody on site. I just saw that work had begun. And then I had got in touch with the building owner, and I spoke with Ruby on the phone. And that's when I told her that, you know, I was issuing a stop work order, and that, you know, work should cease on the property until they got their permits approved through HPC, and until I had seen that that had occurred and lifted the stop work order personally. Then the following day, I had gone out, witnessed the windows being installed, and spoke with those window installers whom left thereafter. And then I got on the phone with Ruby. I believe I left her a message, and then I believe that Ruby called me later or the next morning addressing the fact that she had workers out there yet working on the home after I had issued the stop work order. And
that would be Friday afternoon, correct?
You know, I'm sorry, I haven't got that up in front of me. I could look that up, but that may be true. That sounds like it could be right. And then at that time, I scheduled another meeting with Ruby so that I could meet with her out there and go over what was going on. And I just wanted to make sure that we were clear, you know, on what was happening and that. And so I met with Ruby. We walked around. I discussed, you know, the rear steps, the permit that was pulled that was, you know, for the rear steps, and the permit. So the way that I understood it with Ruby is that after she had email communications with George for the acquisition of permits for her property, you know, George was pretty clear in his email communications. He had sent me those communications so I could review them. He was pretty clear about the things that he needed from her to move forward on approvals for the siding and the windows, but that he was okay with the rear steps that needed to be replaced. And so she was able to acquire the rear step permit, and at the same time, somehow she got a permit for siding and windows. I believe the permit, if I remember right, included work for siding and windows through DSI. And I believe that this happened because there's a little bit of a disconnect between HPC and DSI. And I don't think that whoever issued that permit realized that she was in a historical or a heritage preservation area there. And so I think that they are honestly issued that permit, and you know, and this was after George had sent the email to, or several emails to Ruby, explaining in detail And I thought it was very nicely put together. You could tell he put some time into, you know, the way he detailed what he needed from her, which was basically the more information on the siding she wanted to install and the windows she wanted to install, the types of materials they were, what types of materials was being removed, you know, et cetera. And she kind of circumvented, it seemed, finishing getting her approvals with George and went straight to DSI. And then, you know, because DSI and HPC they, you know, there was a little bit of a disconnect there. I think that permit got issued erroneously with, you know, and so then she commenced work. And so I spoke with Ruby about that on site when I met with her, and you know, and she said, you know, she was telling me how they had issued the permit for the siding, and so then I went over that with her, and I you know, reminded her about the emails that, you know, George had sent her, and you know, the fact that there had been no approvals from George to get these permits for the re-siding and the.
And how is that possible? Shouldn't that permit have automatically been flagged?
Well, and that's where I, you know, I guess where I look at it as sometimes, you know, we're all human, so we're all apt to overlook something every once in a while, and I think.
Oh, I totally get that, but shouldn't the process be automated?
Well, I would have to say that it must not be, because you know, and I guess what you may be alluding to is that in the permitting department that there may be something in there to alert the permitting people to the fact that it's an HPC project or something like this, so that they could, you know, identify any you know, specific items that need to be addressed before they issue the permit. So I guess he answered your question, and I don't really know a ton about the system down there in permitting, but I believe that the answer would be no, that they don't have that type of, you know, it doesn't alert them to that right off the bat.
George, is that true?
This is George, and there is an automation in place that they can see what is a historic district and what needs our approval and what doesn't. What happened with this, and the permit that went out is a permit for the rear stair. It's very clear. It says rear stair, and that was included in your packet as well. And then somewhere in the part of it, it says siding replacement and windows. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, it doesn't. It's not clear. You have to go from the top line of what is the permit for. I don't know if somebody erroneously added those parts in there, if they added those parts in there earlier, or what happened, but they did not have a permit for doing this work. They had a permit for redoing the rear stair.
Well, would both of you gentlemen agree that apparently some systemic work needs to be done to avoid this in the future?
Well, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the future. Yes, we have a constant issue. Matter of fact, our two departments meet on a monthly basis to talk about things like this. So,
Chair, this is Commissioner Bazat, both to George and Mr. Zane. It has been under our understanding all along, since a particular system went into DSI, that any structure that is designated by itself or within a district is flagged as such immediately on the screen when a permit is requested for any work.
correct.
So it sounds as if somebody didn't read the whole permit request, perhaps, and issued the okay. But if the stairs were forwarded to staff for approval based on the fact that the structure was in an historic district, then the entire request wasn't forwarded in some way. So, okay, I am confused by the process at this point and by, this is not as straightforward as it appeared to my reading of the issue first. So thank you very much, Mr. Zane, again, for your description and your work in working with the owner. Appreciate it.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff in this application? Hearing none, I know, George, that we received that one letter you circulated today from Mr. Mazanek, or I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, a neighbor that you circulated today. Were there other written testimony or comments from the public?
Yes, we received two other comments. One was from Marnie Oberpriller. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. She wanted to state that there had been a couple families in the past just in that area that the HPC did make them do the right thing. There was a family that removed a large portion of siding and started putting up vinyl and was made to reverse that, and that there was a company that was enclosing their front porch and was made to close that. She asks that we, and I'm paraphrasing her letter, she asks that we hold our ordinance and our regulations. She said she also wants to state that she spoke to the contractor as work was beginning and told them that they needed approval to do the work. And then Carol Carey had sent a email to me, said, "Hello, George, I'm writing to you regards to 777 6th Street East. I agree with staff recommendation. I encourage the commission to support it. As you noted, after-fact reviews are difficult for all, but in this case, the owner appeared to know that there was a review and approval process and chose not to follow it. In this case, unapproved changes negatively impact the character of the property in the district." And then she goes on about how Keller Row is a very important area to Dayton's Bluff. So that was it.
Thank you. And I realize again that I did this slightly out of order, we should hear from the applicant now. Is the applicant on the line to address this application?
Madam Chair, my name is Patricia Whitney. I am Ruby Wynn's attorney. She and I are both on the line in our respective homes.
Okay, Ms. Whitney, you and or Ms. Wynn have a total of 15 minutes to address the commission on this application.
Thank you, ma'am. I will address the issue that was raised by one of the commissioners with respect to the permit itself, and was this action a contemptuous action. A little background is necessary, and then if you can review the documents while I go through this. Ms. Wynn's father died in July of COVID. She has been under a great deal of stress. Subsequent to her father's passing, she also became the guardian of her mother with dementia. So as you can imagine, under this stressful time, critical thinking skills have been impacted. Ms. Wynn, if you look at the building permit, it was a walk-in permit that was initiated in early August 12th of 2020, prior to Ms. Wynn's engaging communications back and forth with staff member Gauss. BSI's correction orders reflect that the owner of the property should turn to DSI and gave DSI's phone number on each of the deficiencies that required a permit. It did not ever reference going to HPC for anything. So Ms. Wynn did turn to DSI and submitted a walk-in application for siding, rear stairs, and windows. The reason for the siding was deficiency number 6 on the correction orders, cited holes in the boards, holes in the soffits, holes in the fascia, rotting boards, broken panels, etc. And Ms. Nguyen can give you more information on the physical condition of the underlying siding. With respect to the windows, if you look at deficiency number 31, it references, this is a duplex building, affordable housing occupied by 2 families at this present time. The lower unit, unit number 1, 2 of the bedrooms, and Ms. Nguyen can fill you in on how many bedrooms the unit actually holds, have been issued as unoccupiable as bedrooms because the window size is inadequate, so that there needed to be a greater physical opening size for the windows to be listed as egress windows and those rooms then to be used as legal bedrooms. There's also unit number 2, which would be the upstairs, referenced later on in the correction orders that an air conditioner had damaged the windows sufficient that there was accumulated water in the sill and damage to the window frame and the windowsill itself area, possibly even gone down into the wood underneath the windowsill. So there was a physical need to address the windows as opposed to a repair. Definitely in unit number 1, 2 of the windows needed to be a larger size. If you turn to the building permit, it does indicate that 3 areas were applied for: windows, stairs, and siding. Now, what had happened in this course of interaction is Ms. Nguyen and Mr. Gauss were communicating back and forth via email starting on the 20th of August. Also, Susan Teller from DSI, from the permits department, was communicating via email with Ruby. So briefly, where it gets to be where this communication starts snowballing starts on the 27th of August. Ruby communicates to Mr. Gauss in response to his email about details. Then Ms. Tellers from DSI asks similar questions, and Ruby responds within 7 minutes of each other in terms of these 2 emails back and forth. Then there's a question from DSI about, again, where's the window physically? So she responds. August 28th, the next day, there's questions again from Mr. Gauss regarding the elements, everything but the stairs. Ruby responds within 3 hours. Then on Sunday, both of these parties should be commended for continuing this work on a weekend. But Mr. Gauss sends information to Ruby. He requests more information. He instructs her to pick up the permit from the building department and references an HPC meeting. But from my understanding, Ruby doesn't get that. Ruby doesn't catch this. She doesn't understand. She does understand that previously, back on like about the 21st of August, she's told by Mr. Gauss that the DSI online permit process has been frozen because this is an HPC issue. Okay, so you have, back to the Sunday, August 30th, there's an exchange. Mr. Gauss in the morning, I need additional information. Ruby responds later that night with a brief answer and says, I'll get more information to you in the morning. Then there's another exchange of information. On the 31st, which is Monday, 11:12 a.m., Ruby responds to Mr. Gauss regarding the window. Mr. Gauss responds back about the need for a scale drawing, references the HPC hearing again. He does request more information about the city code. Is there orders about the siding? And then lo and behold, less than an hour later, DSI, through Ms. Tellers, sends Ruby the permit. So based on my understanding and what Ruby's explained to me, and she will either corroborate or correct my understanding of the situation, is Ruby thought she had submitted everything, the permit came through, she was ready to go, she proceeded. There was never any intent to be contemptuous of the housing preservation process, of Mr. Gauss, of anyone. Her needs were, I need to get this corrected for my tenants so that I can retain my certificate of occupancy. I need to do this under permit, which she followed through and tried to get. Yes, she didn't do it fully. I must admit, I'm an attorney who's been in this industry working with the city of St. Paul for many, many years, and I even find the housing preservation process confusing. So to a layperson whose native language is English, but who was not born in this country, who does not deal in this on a day-to-day basis, this was very confusing. And all she wants to do is follow the instructions properly. However, she did want to point out one thing that I want everybody to remember is the two houses in this Keller row house situation, the two houses adjacent to her both have vinyl siding on it. So she didn't understand when she's got rotten wood, why she couldn't put an additional product, vinyl, that would match the other two houses adjacent to her house. And that's, I think, where I will leave it. And if Ruby feels she wants to add anything, I'd ask Ruby to jump in right now. Thank you, Madam Chair and staff members and commissioners.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney. Ms. Nguyen, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, my name is Ruby Nguyen, and I could like to correct what happened with City Clint, that he called me on Friday at 2 o'clock. He left me a message to stop the order. Those two windows was replaced earlier that day already. And I did call to stop everything. And again, this is COVID-19 and this contractor, and he come out on Monday and saw the instruction. I mean, the contractor, the window guy, not siding, just window, and he took out the arch. But those windows on the living room was replaced on Friday already. And after that, nothing. And I did call my contractor back and say, how come the window guy comes? And he just say, oh, I don't know, it's sided. I left a message for both guys, and then the window guy didn't get the message. So they just say they don't get it. So I just want to correct that. And the window was replacing, that is similar size with what we have on the old one. It's single hung, a little bit smaller because the old window is all taller. So it's all red. It just the same size. I mean, it just wide and then shorter, but it's a single hung window. It's all rotted. A little, I mean, window, the glass is fine, but the middle between all the window together, wood there is rotted, so there's no way we can replace it. And the other window, bedroom need to have a egress window there to become a second bedroom. And no other window there, so that's the city on the as on the efficiency that I need to fix. And it's seen. Yeah, we have the Marcy order that we need to get it done, and inside, everything inside has been done. It take a little bit long because of COVID-19, and then at first we don't know what to do with CDC say, how to use masks and washing hand. We take a longer, but we try to follow everything we can. And then like a permit say yes siding and yes on the window. So according to me, English is yes, is a yes. So That's why we didn't start the siding until we got the permits, and that's time the contractors start ordering the vinyls. We just started a week ago. Then we got stop order.
Chair?
Yes, I just, Commissioner Bazat, just before we get to that, were you, Ms. Wynn, were you finished with what you wanted to say to the commission?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And it's, you know, it certainly sounds like it was a confusing situation. So, you know.
And I want to add I want to add more time. I just be foreigner to this country. I try my best to, you know, do a business and helping all the family with affordable housing, so they can start with their life.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Do we have questions from the commission for the applicant or her attorney?
Chair, I have a question for the applicant. This
Yes.
is Commissioner Bazat.
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wynn, thank you for your presentation. We understand the confusing situation. I have a question about the materials that have already been removed and some of the features of the window that was already replaced. There was an arch and window over that, and then on the little bay on the side of the house, there was a very interesting window formation. Can you tell me if any of those materials were saved?
I don't think so. When it break it out, it's the glass was broken already.
Not so much the glass. I'm thinking about the frame itself. Or
yeah,
did
it's rotted.
Well, you know, those are the kinds of things that get investigated by staff to see, or another inspector to see the exact extent of the damage. So if they took it out as, like, if the arch was taken out as one piece, and if the original window frames were pried off, they can be checked to see what it would take to repair them as opposed to replace them. So those are the kinds of recommendations that the commission looks at. So I just wanted to know if you had been over there to see if there was anything left of the original frames.
And,
right.
I don't think so. Yeah, it's been put in dumpster and move it. And again, I like to ask. Yeah, I like to ask in on the back of my house is I think city inspector clean that took the picture for George, that my inside the wood was rotted as well after take out the
Right, and all I can say is that sometimes we do hear from people that the wood's rotted, and it turns out to be not quite as bad as they think it might be. But I was just
no, it's really rotted. It's
so you're saying that
the
dumpster is already gone. It's been taken to a landfill, the materials in it. Is that, do you think so, or do you not know?
Yeah, it's gone. It's not at my properties anymore.
If I may, this is Clint, the building inspector. I did take photos when I was out there, and I'm looking at the photos of the frame of that window on the ground. That was a little bit concerning to me because it was an ornate window that would be, you know, particular to an older building like this. And it did not appear to be rotted. It was definitely in a bunch of pieces because of the way that they had torn it out. But the wood for the frame of the window, from what I could see, would have been able to be reused.
And one quick
And
comment.
the back of my house, that's rotted.
Yeah, one
You
quick.
took the picture for
Did-
George.
Mhm. And if nothing else, I kind of looked at it as even if the window wouldn't, or even if the wood frame would have been rotted, would have been likely that they would have wanted a window of, a similar nature installed in there.
Well,
rather than-
just looking at your photo, measurements could be taken too. So, but if that material is been taken to a landfill, that's not possible anymore. Thank you, Ms. Wind, for your information.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Lubke.
Yes.
Ms. Wynn, if you don't mind me asking, and it may not sound like it's directly related, and I understand that the name on most of the communications with the city is of Hank Trung Soo, but the basic research that I was able to do indicated that the owners of this home are relatively significant rental property owners. May I ask how many units of rental property you own, ma'am?
In
Total?
I do own 8.
So you have some experience in these matters.
I do have experience in renting.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, but not. I don't know. This is the first time I do sidings on a big house, on a house, and in historic.
Are there any other questions for the applicant or her attorney?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Perotka.
Yes, Commissioner Perotka.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here today. And I just want to make it very clear that I myself do not find this situation does seem confusing, and I do not find the applicant's behavior contemptuous at all. And at this time of loss and remembrance, my thoughts, Ruby, go to you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? If not, then thank you, Ms. Wynn and Ms. Whitney, for your presentation and coming here and addressing the commission today. Are there any other members of the public who are on the line here to speak to this application? Okay, if there's no further testimony, then I'll close the.
I was trying to figure out the mute. Can you hear me?
I can. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
my name is
if you could please.
Marnie Oberpriller. But go ahead. My name is Marnie Oberpriller, and I had written the letter that George had paraphrased today, and my husband David is also here with me. And we live at 767 6th Street, so we live 3 doors down. And we are in house number 3 of Keller Row. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that this was the house that was the most intact besides our house in the row. There are 4 homes that have original siding and 4 that are covered with vinyl siding. And now there is 1 that doesn't have its original siding anymore. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. My home is, like I said, identical to the one that we're talking about with, I believe, the exception of the gable window at the top and then the enclosed porch. My home was renovated and asbestos siding was removed in the 1990s. And when it was removed in the 1990s, the arched windows were revealed on the home, which are the same arched windows that Miss Lynn has on her home on the side. But I noticed that the front window is the front second arched window is missing. And then I also wanted to point out that I wanted to note that the siding was dropped off on Sunday. And when was the permit permitted for siding? So siding was before the permit. So siding was purchased before the permit is what I want to clarify. And I think, is that it? Is there anything you wanted to add, Dave? And then I had also written in my letter today about ensuring as we move forward, communication between the people who purchase homes in the historic district, and how is that clarified for people? And because this seemed to be like the home that's 2 doors down from me at 773 and the one that's actually next to Miss Wynn's, over this weekend, they replaced a window in their upper gable. And there was no permit posted on the home for that. So that's something I wanted to address. And I'm trying to think what else. Is that, oh, and just communication. If you have people who are like I myself own rental property in St. Paul and Ramsey County, but I'm aware of what I do and before I do it. And so, and then I also have to go through the same occupancy process that Ms. Wynn does, so I understand that. But I think that I guess for me, because I live in the historic district, I know what I'm up against and I know what I expect. So that's just what I want to say. Did you want to say anything, Dave? Okay. All right, I'm finished.
Thank you, Ms. Oberfriller. Any other members of the public who are on the line here to speak to this application? If not, then I will close the public hearing on this application at this point, and I'll ask if whether there is a motion and a second on this application.
Yes, ma'am. This is Commissioner Lubke.
Yes, Commissioner Lubke.
I move to deny the application for replacement of siding and windows at 777 6th Street East, as per the findings of fact and condition in the draft resolution, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
This is Commissioner Bazat. I
Commissioner
second.
George. Okay. Fine.
Commissioner Bazat. Do we have a second on that one?
Commissioner George,
Bazat?
second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Discussion on that, deliberation on that motion.
If I might, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Lubke. I am a resident of Dayton's Bluff, and the folks on East 6th Street are my neighbors, including several people who live very close to this project. There is a reason that you buy a home in an historic district. It provides you a guarantee of valuation. When regulations in historic districts are enforced, property values increase. And that's a motivation for property owners in the district to improve their own homes, knowing that their neighbors cannot do something inappropriate. Now, it seems to me, as the owner of multiple rental properties, Ms. Wynn is not an unsophisticated investor. There are rules that need to be followed, and in this case, they were not. Now, I find it incredibly unfortunate that the city did not present a more unified front and a more easily comprehensible description of the situation. But ignorance is not an excuse for violating the law. And I won't reward this behavior. I'm finished. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you, Commissioner Lubke. Any other discussion on this application?
Chair, this is Commissioner Bazat.
Yes, Commissioner Bazat.
I just want, it appears that, I will admit that I agree with Commissioner Lubke in terms of the need to know the property you've purchased and to know about its surroundings and any rules, laws, processes that go along with that purchase of that structure. I do also want to say that it sounds like there are some very much needed corrections within the interface between the HPC and the permitting process. I recognize that HPC staff and DSI staff meet regularly, but this is the first permit in my 6-7 years on the commission that I've seen that's had language in it that was approved or apparently approved or allegedly approved that was not clear, that the permit request itself was not clear, that there were some things that were afterthoughts. And I'm not talk about how or why or how that happened or who happened it, but it should never happen again. Needless to say, this, looking at the pictures of the other houses and the picture, I just did a Google Street view of this street, the photograph of which was taken before any work was begun on this particular house at 777. And the windows, the windows on what I think, I don't know what side, you're facing the house, they're the right side. I'm not sure what direction we're looking. There were some fabulous windows in the bay. There was the arched window above the window that's been replaced and another one that's been replaced next to it that have completely changed the looks and would not have been approved by the commission had an application come forward just for the windows for the commission to review. So I will be supporting the denial of the application.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Lubke again.
Yes, Commissioner Lubke.
I honestly believe this is something that we owe to the neighbors. What is the purpose of an historic district except to encourage investments in our heritage resources? And many have willingly taken on that commitment. And for a neighbor to violate the rules is not fair to their investments. Thank you.
Whoa, you're upset much?
Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Perotka.
Yes, Commissioner Perotka.
Thank you. I will be voting to deny the application. As Director Gauze had said, this whole project needs to be reassessed. And I look forward to the opportunity of the property owner and the HPC to reassess and go forward with this project differently than it has been gone forward with now. And because it definitely needs some attention that approval of the application would not address. As well, regardless how we got into this place, we are living in extraordinary times and allowances should be made. So I will vote to deny this application so that we can go forward to this with this project in a different way and that this home continues to be an asset for the Dayton's Bluff Historic District. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Peroka. Any other
This is
deliberation?
Commissioner Wagner.
Yes, Commissioner Wagner.
So I've sat on the commission for quite a number of years now, and I've seen countless window and siding projects come before us that were begun without a permit. As unfortunate as those circumstances are, we do need to hold the line, and in terms of process, it seems like there may have been some confusion with what was being asked for by the original permit. I happen to know, having pulled a permit myself within a historic district, that they do get flagged, and if the work is in a historic district, you do get notified. It comes up on the screen. Now, again, who knows what the person looking at the screen saw and said at the time or understood about the permit that was before them. I suspect that the impression was that the permit was for the replacement of the stoop. But regardless, communications were definitely made by staff to the applicant about a process for approvals through the HPC. And so if there were conflicting messages, that is, again, probably a good reason to believe that that raised questions with the applicant's mind, and that applicant chose to disregard those conflicting messages and went with the direction that perhaps they wanted. That's speculation on my part, but what isn't speculation is that the guidelines are very clear. The process needs to be followed, and now that we're faced with approval or denial of this application before us, it's clear that we need to apply the guidelines uniformly, and this would be very much denying this application would be very much in line with all of the applications that are similar to this that I've seen over the course of almost 9 years of sitting on the commission. So I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Wagner. Any other deliberation? If not, I will close deliberation and call for a vote on the motion that was made by Commissioner Lubke and seconded by Commissioner George. So Commissioner George, how do you vote?
I vote, I support the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat?
I support the motion to deny.
Thank you. Commissioner Lubke?
Aye.
Commissioner McDonald?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peroka? Commissioner Peroka, are you still with us?
Commissioner Peroka votes yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
Yes.
Then the motion to deny the application passes. And again, to the applicant, Ms. Nguyen and her attorney, as Mr. Peroka said, we'll be working, the HPC will be working with you going forward on this, and hopefully we can make this work for everyone. So thank you. So our next item of business is a recommendation on the maintenance and repairs to the George Latimer Central Library in downtown St. Paul. And do we have a staff report on that, or a staff presentation on that?
Yep, this is staff member George Gauze. This is for 84th Street South. This is the library right in front of Rice Park. Library was completed in 1917. Building is an excellent example of Northern Italian Renaissance architecture. With any other city agency, our ordinance says that we don't actually issue an approval, we make a recommendation to that city agency. What's happening with the library is there has been some structural concerns and various deterioration that requires restoration work be performed. Work includes epoxy and pinning of cracked modillions, replacement of missing and broken modillions, patch eroded, chipped and cracked stone, replace stone fasteners, and tuck pointing of various areas. The application was complete, gave you a lot of pictures of all the areas they are working on. I will read from the St. Paul Public Library, James J. Hill Reference Library Preservation Program. It's a very simple preservation program. It says exterior work should be preserved in a manner consistent with its original design intent. This work will certainly do that. It will repair the deterioration issues. There will be no visible change that will be noticeable after the work is complete. We recommend that this work moves forward. Questions?
This is Commissioner McDonald.
Yes, Commissioner McDonald.
Yes. On our masonry restoration projects, we usually require mock-ups for repointing and mock-ups for sealants and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see any specifications in their submittal as to what those materials are. And I should also mention the patching compound for the stone.
Mm-hmm.
Does the HPC have any jurisdiction over reviewing those samples, or is that strictly up to Braun Intertech?
We could certainly ask if they would cooperate with us. I don't think we would have a lot of authority to ask for it, like we would if this was a private structure. Just the way our ordinance is written, that says we can make a recommendation to another city agency. So we do have folks from the representing the library on the line. So we can ask them.
This is Barb Moore, and Barb Sporlin from the library was on here, but she had to leave a little earlier. But this is Barb Moore, and I'm with the design group with the city of St. Paul. And we are working with Braun Intertech to get the specs out. And yes, we usually ask for submittals on what they plan to use for, you know, grout and caulk and those types of things, and the stone itself. But we're using Braun Intertech as our consultant. So they are the professionals, and we rely on them to make sure that whatever the contractor provides meets the quality of the product or the materials that are there on the building.
This is Commissioner McDonald again.
Yes.
Again, I think in addition to just product information, you know, spec sheets and that sort of thing, the mock-up process is usually very important when dealing with masonry. May I ask who with Braun Intertech you're working with?
Pam Jurgensen.
Okay.
She's with their building and structural and science group, I think is the name of her, or the department that she's in within that Braun Intertech group.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for staff on this this issue? If not, George, I'm not exactly sure. I should have thought of this before, but exactly how we proceed is so we just we can make a recommendation to go forward with maybe some caveats.
Exactly.
Do we just need a motion?
We could, you just kind of a motion like regular, but we're just going to say recommendation that we move forward, they move forward with the project, or maybe there's concerns and we want to ask for a change, or we want them to resubmit. So.
Okay, thank you. So do we have does anyone have a motion they'd like to offer on this issue?
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Bazat.
Back to my old, I'll make the motion mode. But actually I have a question. I would like to move that we recommend the city move forward with the project, but that the HPC requests more specific information about the products and processes. Is that work?
How about review of the mock-up materials? I think that was more what's there.
And the specification.
And specifications.
Mock-up materials and specifications for the work projected to be done.
Okay, so we have a motion that we're recommending that the city proceeds with the project, but that it provides HPC with an opportunity to comment on the mock-up and the materials used in the repairs.
Right, mock-up materials and specifications.
Mock-up materials and specifications. That's the motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second on that motion?
Nelson, second.
Pardon me?
This is Nelson, I second.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Commissioner Nelson. Any discussion on that motion?
I have a question, Madam Chair. This is Commissioner Lubke.
Yes, Commissioner Lubke.
And maybe I should be more sophisticated about the system in place in St. Paul regarding interagency authority and approval. In a previous life, when I chaired the commission in Winona, and I remember when we did a major expansion at City Hall, we had significant authority. That's not the case here, George?
So our ordinance says that I'm trying to find it right now so I can read it. So Legislative Code, Chapter 73, 73.06B, City Activity. The Heritage Preservation Commission shall review and make recommendations concerning all other city activity to change the nature or appearance of a heritage preservation site, and no permit shall be issued or work commence until the Heritage Preservation renders its recommendation thereon, subject to the limitations specified in paragraph F, which is something different. So the interpretation is that we do get to see it. We can make a recommendation, but it's not quite the same as issuing a certificate of appropriateness.
So it's sort of like senatorial advise and consent?
Yeah, it's like a courtesy between agencies.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion that's before us? If not, I will call for a vote on the motion. Commissioner George.
Aye.
Commissioner Bazat.
Yes. In favor.
Commissioner Lubke. Commissioner
Aye.
Lubke.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald.
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
Commissioner Peroutka.
Yes.
and Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a unanimous support the motion, so that motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Moran, and
Thank you.
move on to the next item of business, which I believe is the 2020 CLG year-end report draft.
So Commissioners, I gave you all, this is George Gauze. I gave you all a draft of our 2020 CLG year-end report. It's very different from our past numbers due to COVID-19. It's pretty clear. It's kind of funny. Our review numbers are down, but everything else we kind of did was way up. Our attendance in different meetings and things like that. So those pieces and parts of that were a lot more beefier than normally are. So I have to turn this into the state by the 30th. If you have any concerns, questions, anything you want, just let me know. Edits, please let me know. If not, I will fire that off to the SHPO and we will be done on time. So, comments, questions?
Thank you, George. I mean, the only thing I noticed that there's a few revisions that need to be made to my bio, like my email address and things like that, but I can just send those to you.
Oh, okay.
Offline,
Yep. Yeah, you guys control your own bios. We don't, staff doesn't get into those. We let you guys write them, and whatever you've written us, that's what goes in there. So if you want to decide you want to change some things, feel free just to get that to me.
Would that were true, that we actually controlled our own bio.
I'm just impressed we're doing something on time.
Yeah. Well, just hang on. It's not, I got 10 days. Anything can happen between now and then.
I was just impressed with how cool we sound. How busy.
Especially now.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts for George on that, or?
Just a thank you for doing it, George.
I was just going to say that. Yes, I will add my voice to that.
Of course, yes. Thank you, George.
You're welcome. So
okay, so then go ahead, George.
Next item is the kind of the comments from our HPC listing session. I sent everybody our kind of plain Jane list. I did not put anything in order. I did not group anything. It's just my nature to group comments together. I just left it as they were spoken to us. But I do have my own secret grouping of comments that I did because I was very curious. Overwhelmingly, we got positive comments. Overwhelmingly, 85% people were positive. They are very happy we're doing this work. I've sent you a couple of emails that we've received. I know there's a couple more emails that are coming in. People want to write some things. They're very positive that the HPC is taking this work on. So applause to all of you. We had a couple of comments that were hard to read, a little raw, but once you kind of let the blood pressure go down a little bit, you start to look at it and say, okay, I kind of see where this person's coming from. That is something we probably need to work on. So I feel like our comments come down into 4 different areas, really 4.5. The most comments we received were that we need to diversify what is preserved and or studied by the HPC. We need to be looking at what stories we're telling, what areas we're preserving, how we're preserving those areas. That there may be an area that architecturally doesn't have a large amount of eligible structures, but may have a cultural component. People were very much thankful that we were looking at a cultural component. There were some comments on our policy that maybe we're part of the problem, that we need to change some of the policies that we have. There was quite a few comments that really could kind of get boiled down to education, which we already kind of know. We have an education committee. We're trying to do outreach. Allison had a brilliant program set up for Preservation Week, and we got COVIDed. So maybe next year, if we're not still in COVID.
First time I've heard that as a verb. Thank you very much.
It should be, right? Our fourth area really is our restrictions, that there are some issues with restrictions. Lingo can be restrictive. I think we just saw a case where there were some restrictions that there obviously was a disconnect. So, and then there was kind of I have it as a half, 4.5, a heritage preservation audit. And I put it as a half because I don't know of anyone that's ever done an audit of themselves. I don't know how we would do this. I'm not sure who we would even ask to do an audit of us. But you know, what harmful things we do, what good things we do, what value we are to the community. I think that would be a pretty difficult thing to try to.
George, it's a standard business thing.
I know.
And more particularly, just ask anybody at the university who's had to go through this as a staff member.
Yeah.
George, do we realistically have the funding to try to do something like that?
No. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it depends on. Well, that's just the thing. I mean, I wonder how we would do it. When I talked to the leadership team in PED, they kind of questioned if it would just be HP staff or it would be all the planning staff. How it would, because theoretically, I mean, we touch a lot of different departments, and we work with a lot of different departments, and I'm not sure. Do we also talk to them about the audit? So it's just an idea out there that it's a maybe or maybe not. I don't know. So, but we did have some work plan items, and I'm happy to report that we will be working on an economic hardship policy according to our director of PED. When she looked at the comments, she very much thought we need to have something. And there's 3 areas of that, which once again we kind of talked about earlier today with a case, which is that economic value, cost benefits, hardship of the owner. Commissioner McDonald talked about it. We need to give you guys, commissioners, future commissioners, guidelines or bullet points or something. And when something like this comes up, how do you even react? What direction should you be going and why? So the second piece of that, which the director also wants us staff working on, is to establish a definition and standard for the application of guideline and regulation flexibility. When we have a situation, is there a way we can be flexible? And what does that mean? The third thing that just came together about an hour ago, I have asked for the license to allow the commission to view a video called Race the Power of Illusion, and they have one on redlining, GI Bill, real estate regulations, things like that, which is going to go into a lot of other things, but it's probably 65-75% into our area. So I thought it might be good for the commission to see that. I'll be working out how we get that license and how we can view that, and probably try to do that. That might have to wait till the beginning of the year. I know that we would work through the mayor's office to get that license, and I know the mayor's office is keen on having all boards and commissions look at some of these videos. Race the Power of Illusion was on PBS And I don't know if they replay it from time to time. So if you can find it there on demand, it might be worth taking a look at. So,
Excuse me, George, is that
yes.
a local production?
It is not. It is a national
Okay.
production.
Is it, do you know what series it was? Was it, oh, now I can't think of any of the Viewpoint one. I can't think of any of those. Frontline or something else? Well, anyway, if you can find a citation to it, why don't you forward that to all of us? Because
I can do that, yeah.
I don't do many donations, but I do TPT, so I've got that passport thing. And you can get at a lot of other stuff that you can't. Anyway, so.
Yeah, it's just called Race, the Power of Illusion. So there's a lot of different chapters of this. So some of the things that also kind of came up during the listening session were, maybe we need to translate our guidelines and our policies in the spoken languages of St. Paul. There are 10 official spoken languages of St. Paul. And we do have people that can translate things, but they're not interested in translating reams and reams and reams of guidelines. So we may have to work at kind of the basic overall, this is what the HPC is, this is what we're trying to do in an area, these are kind of the regulations for that area, and how to get further help with something.
Well, George, we could also consider having, for example, district guidelines translated in areas where we think it might be in high demand.
Yes, we could do that too. Yeah.
Well, there's that, plus there are those brochures that we did, and they don't have to make a new brochure for each language, but perhaps just as a document, translate those brochures, because they're very, very basic, but they're an introduction to the HPC.
Yeah.
So you've already got, some verbiage ready to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, isn't as I understand it, our long-term goal is to eventually have, like, instead of having all the different districts have different standards, that we're going to try to get a comprehensive list and a comprehensive guideline for all the districts in the city.
Yes.
And if we did that, then it would be less that would require translation anyway. So. Right. George, can I just ask you a question? So
yeah, go ahead.
This idea of the audit intrigues me, but what were people suggesting we should be auditing? I mean, like I don't know, ourselves, or what would be?
It came down to there were four comments that we kind of put in that bucket. Expand the good protection, but limit the harm of historic preservation. Is historic designation having unintentional consequences on the city, is the city to blame? What harm occurs with our current regulations, and what is the value of the HPC and designation to our communities? So when you kind of start to put those together, it seemed like an audit, right?
Actually, it seems to me more like a conversation with the community, with the different communities, to say, we, like if we had more of these community meetings, and like I've said before, not just with the people that are in the existing historic districts, but with, people outside those districts, where we would just have a forum where, we would explain what we do, and get feedback from the community about their reaction to that. What if they think it would be helpful in their community, if they think it would be not helpful in their community. I think that it seems to me there's kind of a fear in some parts of the city that the HPC is going to swoop in and designate them, unknowingly and, without their permission. And then they're going to be subject to these onerous obligations that they don't want. And so
right.
I think it would be helpful,
And we heard some of those comments, and I had those kind of under the education piece. But yeah, we definitely need an education, some more education. And I've been having some conversations on some other things, and I've got the name of the Rondo Roundtable group, and they would like to talk to the HPC. So
Oh, yes, great. Good.
I'm gonna try to once we kind of figure out what a work plan is, I was going to reach out and meet with them and have us. I don't know if they want to come to a meeting or us go to their meeting or what. So.
Well, and honestly, 7777 is an excellent example of ways that the heritage designation can improve conditions for our residents, because there's an economic incentive for a landlord to improve a rental facility. We just need to make sure we phrase these things right, I think.
Right.
And taking advantage, George, I want to thank you for facilitating the roundtables and listening sessions and the outreach. They've been very effective. I found going to HPC meetings before I was the commissioner was kind of like, boy, this is a really closed group. But something I noticed during the last listening session, areas that we can do better in education, for example, when you mentioned there are actually 9 historic districts in St. Paul, even though they're less than 4% of the population. Even today, they're vital and dynamic. For example, the University Raymond district has the highest concentration of hospital workers in the Twin Cities. It's on the Green Line. The Green Line goes to within a block, if not in front of, every hospital in the Twin Cities pretty much, or in St. Paul and Minneapolis, including HCMC, both campuses of M Health, regions. St. Paul has been at the forefront of the COVID epidemic with Bethesda and St. Joe's. And I just wish I would have taken the opportunity at the end of the listening session just to expand on that, because those frontline employees and hospital workers and medical students that live in high numbers, that's something to talk about, the historic district, the Raymond University Historic District, as well as the Artist's Loft at the Schmidt Brewery. Not everything is so high profile as perhaps the importance. They're vital, but Summit Avenue or Irvine Park. But anyway, it's excellent that we are having these listening sessions, roundtables, and the pop-ups that we had last year. So thanks, George.
George,
Well,
this is Barb. I just wanted to say too, having gone through word by word on the draft designation and service. For those of you who aren't on the committee, I don't know how many of us are on the designation and survey committee, but we've gotten a very recent draft of that guidelines, how to go about doing designations and surveys. And one of the things I added in just about every place I could was the word cultural, in addition to other significant features. But I think there's, again, for using existing verbiage, and not having to reinvent a wheel, there's a lot of pieces in that describes how the work gets done, and sort of in very plain language, doesn't use a lot of the terminology. We've talked about this before, how we throw around all this professional vocabulary kind of thing. And sometimes we get caught up in that and forget that people don't know what an architrave or a cornice is. And so we've got some stuff in good plain language that we can continue to use as we move forward with whatever they're called, outreach pieces and outreach meetings and education pieces. So I'm really impressed with where we've been with that. and the direction we're taking. I'm really in favor of making these kinds of moves.
Cool. And the document Barb just spoke to, we're still in draft mode, but you're all going to get a chance to read through that at some point. So, and we have
George,
a survey.
is there any?
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, is there any possibility to get a printed copy of the document you were talking about? I usually got them printed out at the library, but there's a printing shop in the Skyway system, and they cost 79 cents a sheet, which is a bit prohibitive. Yeah.
Well,
but I, having a hard copy and being able to make notes and go back and forth, although everything's kind of suspended now.
No, Joe, I've got a printer. I can stand 6 feet from you and toss a print copy across the street at sometime in the near future. Just get in touch with me and I'll print a copy for you.
Oh, thank you so much, Barb. I appreciate that.
All right, so that's kind of that's where we're going. So were there other things that folks thought that after listening to that or reading through that, gee, here's something else we need to do? Or I think there's going to be a lot of education opportunity at our Preservation Week, Preservation Fair event. So
what is there going to be one? When?
Well, when we're uncoveted, I'd love to. You know, we were
okay. You were. It just seemed like you were saying. You know,
well, we rescheduled it 4 times.
Stuff, and we need to redo some of it. So
yes, we rescheduled it 4 times, and finally, we thought, well, we've lost the season. We'll pick it up in the spring again, hopefully, if we're back.
I say do it next fall. Maybe we'll actually still all be alive.
There, yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Well, we've had a long meeting today, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Yes, ma'am. I'll second.
Any objections to that motion? Okay, hearing none, we are in adjournment. Thanks, everybody.
All right, y'all have
be able to see each other again. So.
Thanks, everybody. And
little circles with initials. I want to see
and 777 was real important to me. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
How do I get out of here?
Bye-bye.
I don't know.
Beep. Oh, hang up.